Hello, good morning. How are we all? Are we all caffeinated? We good? Good. Well, thank you for joining us. We've got a great panel coming up. Now, it's fair to say that everyone wants sports. You can see it there. But it's come up even a couple of times already this morning. Everybody is looking at sports. It's a hotly contested part of the media sector at the moment, from sports rights and to fan experience. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Without further ado, we will get cracking. So, who is winning the sports fan? And importantly, how are they winning the sports fan? Now, if we were sat here 5 years ago, we would have been speaking mainly about sports rights. But today, it's fair to say that the talk has moved much further downstream. It's about distribution. It's about that all-important fan experience. And if you can get them to your platform, it's about keeping them. So that shift is what we're here to discuss. I'm going to hand over to my panel to do intros, and then we will crack on. So,
hello. Well, great to be here. My name is João Diogo Ferreira. I'm the managing director of DAZN here in Portugal. Well, past 20 years, mainly on the telco industry, and now, well, in several units, but working a lot on content, and now straight on the content side with DAZN.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Joe. Thanks for having us today. My name is Andrea, and I manage the relationship with sport and media companies in Portugal and Italy for YouTube.
Hello, Joe. Thanks for having us here. Hello, everyone. My name is Ana Lopez. I'm responsible for the product TV and customer experience area at MasOrange. MasOrange is the result of the merge of Orange Spain and MasMobile Group. We have more than 10 TV platforms.
Fabulous. And we will introduce Ian, or we'll let Ian introduce himself when he joins us. But what we'll start off with, and I'm going to come to you first, Andrea. So if I'm a 19-year-old watching a Champions League game in 2026, what does that fan experience look like to you? Beyond just great streaming, what does that mean to YouTube? What are you building towards with regards to sports fan experience?
In one word would be community. So the number one thing we see is attracting, especially younger audiences, is the opportunity to create a community around the event and being able to discuss with other fellow fans what is going on, having a real-time conversation with the creator. So what is really changing is that we're not talking about anymore one direction where there is a broadcast of the signal and everyone is passively looking at it, but instead we're looking at a real conversation between what's happening in the game, what's happening in the newsroom of the game, and what's happening in the home of the fans that want to have that conversation. And I think it's not that far away from what it used to be in the past, right? One of my first memories of as a sport fan was in 1994. Italy used to be in the World Cup.
Oh dear!
I used to live in a military base at the time, and we were all going downstairs in the garden of the village to watch together the game. And that was what created the passion for sport, because we were a community, we were discussing. So, the time has changed. We now have digital platforms, and what we're trying to build here is a community that can serve in this new era for the natural feeling of humans, right? Which is connection.
It's interesting you mentioned that younger cohort. So I spent much of my career working in kids media before I made the move into sport. And when I look at how kids engage with media, they're the most media literate generation ever, but they expect that two-way relationship. They don't expect the broadcast to be broadcast to, which is what we grew up with. They expect that two-way relationship. It's a great point. Coming to you, João. So DAZN pitch is different to that. You are the ultimate kind of daily destination for sports. You go deep, you watch, you buy, connect. So you want to be that hub, that all things to sports fans in one place. How do you do that? Is that what your fans are asking for? What's your position in that whole ecosystem?
Sure. So we want to be, and we believe we can be, the global home of sports. And obviously that's based on the content that we have. Let's not mistake ourselves. So the content is really, really important. But what we know is that the content by itself is not a differentiating factor. And what we know is that the fans want more. And they want these communities that Andrea was talking about, and they want the social aspects of that. And even though that we are a sports platform, we are a tech company. And we
Yeah.
are investing a lot on tech, a lot on these features. We want to be the single place for people, in the specialized place for people that want to connect with sports, instead of a lot of apps and a lot of platforms where fans actually go for the different things. We want them to go to the DAZN and to be able to watch live content, to watch on-demand content, to watch original content, but also to bet, to buy merchandising, to buy tickets, to engage in social experiences, to interact with other fans, or to interact with the athletes. And we are basically investing a lot to be able to give that full experience, some of them with partners, but some of them, well, within these ecosystems. And we believe that we're going to get there.
Just going a little bit deeper on that, how are you finding out what kind of content your users want? Clearly, data is a big part of that, but making content, making shoulder content that isn't just the live or the on-demand stuff that happens on the field of play.
Yeah, so, well, data plays an important role over here. So what we know through our platform is that whenever we launch something, we have immediately the data of the whole community. So, well, it's a try it out. So we test new things, we innovate, we have to put it out there, some new features. We see which one of them actually work better and which one of them don't. And we continue to work continuously on this process. So,
Anna, I'll come to you. As a telco, you're paying subscribers that include at one side a 55-year-old and then another side an 18-year-old. So it's very broad. How do you build for both, satisfying both, without making the experience worse for either, if you take my meaning?
Well, it's a challenge. Well, you need to understand them because they consume content very differently. Traditional audiences or older people want reliability, predictability. They want to find the content in the regular channel at the regular time. They don't want to think where the content is shared. So you need to give them simplicity and remove all the complexity upstream. And on the other hand, you have younger audiences, newer audiences that they don't want to even watch the live content. They watch the on-demand content because they have reached to it via key play, statistics, highlight. So it's like you need to keep these new doors open to them, and it's difficult because you need to manage it in a way that they don't feel that the service or the application it's done for someone else.
Needs to feel made for them.
Yes.
And that's difficult when you have different audiences with different need states. Certainly those younger ones tend to, whilst certain live moments are very important, a Champions League final is important and the Super Bowl is important, but in between times, very often extended highlights is enough because there's so much other content in their lives. Hello, Ian. Welcome. Please give us a quick intro and then I've got a question for you.
All right, thank you. Apologies for walking in a bit late there. So I'm Ian. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of MasOrange. We are a video delivery network based out of Milan.
Well, thank you. Now, I'm going to read this from, I made this a note on my phone because in our prep call, I was really taken with one of your analogies, which made things much clearer to me. So you work in content delivery. We can talk about fan experience all we like, but if it's not delivered well, the whole thing falls down. And you used a great analogy in our prep call. So you compared it to railways. Broadcasters obsess over leather seats and plasma screens in the carriage. But if the train jerks along the track, or worse, it doesn't arrive, none of that matters. Perfect. So when a platform promises low latency on a Champions League night, what does it take to keep that train running on time and smooth?
Okay, well, let's just take a step back. One of my many analogies, I'm kind of sort of infamous for them. So I think the first thing is around fan engagement is that ultimately the content is always the king, of course. But if it is not delivered with the best possible experience, then that frustrates the customer, the viewer. So where content will bring the fan to the event, so to speak, is the actual experience that they get when they're at the event that is going to retain them. So it's often underestimated how important it is to maintain that very, very high level of quality of experience. So go back to the train analogy. Right? Building railway tracks is not the most glamorous side of running a railway network, and running a CDN is not the most glamorous side of sports, especially live sports. But ultimately, if the train in this analogy turns up late, you get a bad experience, is shaky, it doesn't matter how good the content is. It doesn't matter how great that carriage is. It doesn't matter what the application does for you in terms of all the bells and whistles, right? All of the, whether you're delivering prioritized content or you're adding in, real-time social media elements to it. Ultimately, if the experience is not optimal, then it will frustrate the viewer, the fan, and they'll go away. So mainstreaming, yes, we're not on the glamorous end of the delivery chain, but we're on the critical end of maintaining those railway tracks, making sure the train arrives on time and that the viewers get the best possible experience.
Evidenced in my own family with my 16-year-old, he has such limited tolerance for when the Wheel of Death appears on his phone and he's trying to watch football. But that said, sports fans are they're not doing too badly, given that there is as much live sports as you could possibly consume. And now we have creators, we've got lots of bespoke shoulder content. I mean, it's pretty good being a sport fan, but I mean, let's think about where it's perhaps not working so well. So fan needs 3 or 4 subscriptions, might cost €100 per month to be a football fan. And then what happens if you're also a tennis fan or a rugby fan? Yet you've also got 17-year-olds who are catching up on last night's goals and highlights just on TikTok on their walk to college. And of course, piracy is a big thing. So whose responsibility is it to fix? I'm going to come to you first, Anna. This kind of idea of fragmentation and cost, the poor fan, extracting more out of the poor fan. How are you looking at these challenges as a telco business?
Well, for us, it's the perfect situation. As an aggregator, what we do is aggregate all these content. You all have the same experience. And regarding to pricing, we manage agreement with DAZN, with all the SVOD streamers, not only for sports. So obviously the price that the users get when they subscribe a bundle with us is much better than subscribe every service individually. Where's best value.
How do you keep the friction as low as possible, given that you are aggregating all of that together and knowing how, again, that frustration when things aren't working or there's too many signings or things don't load? How do you try and reduce that friction across your services?
Try to work with our partners to have the same kind of onboarding for all the services. We have implemented like almost immediate onboarding via WhatsApp or new channels that users are valuing. We have an experience with DAZN in Spain that worked. It was an example for other countries. So yes, we work a lot on the onboarding because we know that it's frustrating to have to keep signing up in different services.
Andrea, YouTube, known as a place where friction is relatively low, but you've got YouTube TV and also Primetime that are looking like aggregation plays there. So can YouTube be the place where that fragmentation gets solved in your view?
In trading, they say sometimes follow the money, right? I think that when we're talking about sport, we need to think about follow the users. And that's exactly what we try to do in helping our partners, right? So we know the users are on our platform. We reach over 2 billion people over the world. And the opportunity that YouTube offers for our partners that have sport content is incredible because we provide them with all of the tools possible to have every type of monetization, for example. So if you are a sport distributor, like for example, DAZN, we work very closely with DAZN. You will probably have a YouTube channel where you will offer bits of content like highlights on the tournament. You will maybe invite creators in and you will create a completely new ecosystem of content. But if you want, you will also have, this is available in specific markets, but you will also have a primetime channel where you can sell your subscription directly on YouTube. So at this point, YouTube becomes not just a let's call it an amplification platform, but becomes as well a conversion platform. In some other markets like YouTube TV, you will also have linear channels and so on. So we're trying to build an ecosystem that will really offer the opportunity to any type of partner, including sport rights holder, to reach their users and to reduce the friction between formats and conversion, having from shorts format to VOD formats to live formats, paid content, free content, and so on. So everything in one platform to sort of offer to the user the opportunity to have a one-stop shop for everything they need to be the best sport fan possible.
So, I mean, as Andrea said, and you too, Joao, if you put highlights on YouTube and clips on TikTok, if fans are engaging there, how do you ensure that you're owning that fan relationship as DAZN? You already mentioned it's about depth. Your fans really want everything from DAZN.
Before answering to that question, let me get back to your point before, which is about piracy. I would say that piracy is what is not working well in the sports industry. I think everyone looks at piracy, or there's a lot of people that looks at piracy as a problem for the content holder, the one that has the certain rights during the specific cycle, and that's, in my view, completely not correct. Obviously, it's la police, but well, piracy is illegal. Piracy is a crime, and unfortunately, we reach a level where it seems that piracy is very socially acceptable. Everyone knows anyone, knows people that does that, and they don't feel that they're doing anything wrong. And the issue is that the problem is not the problem for a specific content holder of a specific cycle of rights. It's a problem for everyone that works in the sports industry. And when I say everyone, it's the telcos, it's right holders, it's the platforms, but it's also the leagues, it's also the clubs, it's also the players. And ultimately, it will be a problem about the fans. And you've mentioned that the fans are paying a lot because they're paying a lot of subscriptions.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I would say, and I do believe, that piracy is one big responsible for that as well. Obviously, it's a chicken and egg situation, but what we know is that when it's acceptable to have that many people not contributing to the ecosystem, at the end of the day, with the growth of the rights costs, subscriptions tend to be higher. I think it's a responsibility of everyone to be able to face this issue, and certainly an issue that must concern also all the stakeholders and not only the ones that are in this middle of the chain, because at the beginning of the value chain is the consumers, is the people that are actually supporting the industry, but at the last part of the chain are the clubs, are the players, and are all the rest of the stakeholders. So regarding your question about platform, well, DAZN wants to be this ultimate sports entertainment platform, so the place where the full experience is delivered. But we also want to be wherever the fans are. And if there are platforms where the fans are, like TikTok, like YouTube, we want to be there. We want to be there with our brand. We want to be there with our content. We want to be there with showing what we have. And then two things may happen. So for some segments, that will be enough. Okay, that will be enough. They will have access to the highlights, to parts of the content that we offer there, and that's okay. Okay, it's not ultimately what we want, but that's okay. Part of the segments will be fine. For some others, that's an entry point. They will see what we have. They will engage with us. They will find that is cool, the kind of things that we offer, either on content-wise or feature-wise.
Yeah.
And they will try it out, and they will come to our platform. They will register. They will watch free content. Ultimately, they can be subscribers. Yeah, we find that relationship with other platforms like YouTube very working on a very cooperative level. We want to try. We want to be where the fans are, and we engage with these platforms very well.
We've spoken about how those other platforms can be top of funnel, they can refer and can help conversion. Do they help you retain as well? We heard, I think, from Tom earlier that it's very hard after day 30 to keep someone with your app. So do you use that as a retention play as well?
We use as a way to engage with customers in all the part of the customer journeys. They are valid for increasing our reach. They are valid to increase the awareness to our products. They're valid for the subscriptions of our content, and they're also valid for the retention. Wherever they are, we want them that if they like sports, we want them to be connected and engaged with the DAZN platform, with the DAZN brand, and with the DAZN content and with the DAZN features.
Ian, we've spoken about the cost of subscriptions. We talk about the cost of content, the value of rights, and the cost of rights increasing, and the cost of piracy, as Joao spoke about. We rarely talk about the cost of getting that content to those devices, to the screen. And CDN infrastructure is not cheap. Someone's got to pay for it. Talk us through that tension that we discussed it in the prep call. It's a cost that isn't often spoken about.
Sure. Before I do that, though, I just want to double down a little bit on the piracy piece. So I think what's key here, go back to the experience. The reason why fans will go to a pirate site is because they want access to that content. They don't want to pay for it. But ultimately, if they get a poor experience, then they'll get frustrated. And I think this presents an opportunity for the legitimate broadcasters or provider of that content. It's a production problem as much as anything else. So sure, it's a policing problem, but it's a production problem as well. If you maintain very high production standards, and if through technology you can degrade the experience for the pirates, which you can do. I mean, we're a CDN, we can do that. Telcos can do it. It is possible to, for example, add in buffering or misalign the audio to the actual video content, right? There's ways to do it that the pirates won't detect. So technology today can degrade the experience for those viewers who are accessing content on pirated sites. And actually, I was in another panel just now and same topic of piracy came up, and it's not a problem that will ever be solved. You're never going to be able to stop the pirates. It's not going to happen. I mean, they make so much money out of it. I mean, as I said, we're an Italian company. The Italian government has a massive mandate that every broadcaster, I mean, DAZN is one of our best customers in Italy, have to have some level of anti-piracy. They have the anti-piracy shield. This is organized crime. Unfortunately, they're better funded than many of us, in the value chain. So we're never going to get ahead of it, but we can degrade it. We can make it uncomfortable for the viewer. And I totally agree with your point around let's call it the ethics, right? I remember the days when I would go down to Blockbuster and hire a VHS tape and bring it back and stick it into my machine. And it would come up with, if you copy this tape, you're breaking the law. And it was there all of the time. And I think it's become acceptable. I know I sat in a panel about anti-piracy in Spain with La Liga, and they were saying that they lose 700 million euros a year, 700 million euros a year to piracy. And they ran a survey in Spain, and it's the educated middle class who are the main culprits.
Yeah.
Right? So this is a huge social problem. Anyway, that's my piece on the piracy side. To get back to your question around the actual content side. So, of course, broadcasters do have to invest a huge amount of money on the content, especially for live sports content. There's no two ways about it. The big challenge that we have as a CDN is that we have to maintain the capacity. We literally have to build the roads, right, to deliver that content. And if you liken it to a road, maybe between Monday and Friday, not many people are using that road. You only need 1 or 2 lanes. It's good enough. But come the weekend, when you've got a live sports event, you need 10 lanes on that highway. You need a super highway. And as a CDN, we have to build that, not for the 2 lane. We have to build it for the 10 lane. And we then have to pay the telcos to allow us to install our infrastructure and pay for their connectivity, because they also have to maintain the infrastructure. So it's layer on layer of quite a significant cost. And I think the real challenge that we all face in the industry is, how do you deliver a really great quality of experience with great content to the viewer in the way that they want to get it at prices they can afford? And there's a huge pressure on pricing. And we've all seen a lot of CDNs going out of business because it's just not sustainable. And there are ways around that. With mainstreaming, we have this concept called Better Together, where we partner with the telcos. So we have a great partnership with British Telecom and Deutsche Telekom and others, whereby our model is based on revenue shares. So we remove this pressure of big upfront investments and managing for these peak live sporting events that you typically will only get on a Saturday night, sometimes maybe on a Wednesday night, but typically it's very difficult to be able to build out and maintain that capacity. But through our partnerships with the telcos, we're able to overcome that challenge. It's really good for the broadcasters, the content providers, because they get great quality. It's much more affordable. It's great for the telcos because it opens up a new revenue stream. It's great for us as a CDN because we're not at risk, not a commercial risk. So, we call it a win-win-win because it really is a win-win-win for everybody. And I think that's what we want to evangelize a little bit, is that if there's more collaboration, if we remove the buyer-vendor relationship, that kind of love-hate relationship between the telcos, the CDNs, and the content providers, which candidly there is in the industry today, we remove that and we try to work more together to overcome this problem. Because ultimately, the end viewer is all of our customers, right? And that's what we got to do. Better experience, better pricing points for everyone, right? And I think that's the key point that we need to work on.
And to come on to the kind of where the next generation of fans are and the changing face of fandom. I mean, there is an assumption in sports media that there'll be a never-ending supply of new sports fans, that it's self-renewing. But a lot of the geographical drivers of fandom, you've followed your local team, your family was your driver of fandom. They've fallen away. You've got kids who like an athlete and they follow, volleyball in Asia, or they're following Al Nassr because, of their favorite football player. Or they're discovering new sports through YouTube. My youngest loves World Chase Tag. It's very watchable. So, João, you said that DAZN needs to go where the fans are. What does that look like in practice for you when you're trying to reach those next generations, given that they consume in a totally different way to previous generations and also pay for things in a different way?
Yeah, well, so let's talk about the exciting stuff and not about the problems. Look, I think that the reality now it's way more complex than what it was. It was way more simple back in our time. So I'm actually from the time when Italy went to the World Cup, while Portugal was not. So at least I'm happier now. But I learned I learned this passion for sports from my father, from going to the stadium, from watching football on the TV, and it still exists. I have a 9-year-old kid that likes sports, and I take him to the stadium, and I see him watching DAZN at home. And yes, so that still exists, and we need to guarantee that we continue to deliver an amazing experience to the people that want to use and watch sports on a let's say legacy way. But then we need to innovate, and then we need to understand that these kids or this younger generation, they want to watch also sports on a different way, and not only watch but engage with sports in a different way. And I would say there's a key words that for me are relevant. So the community, the social part, the creation. At DAZN, again, we're a tech company, and we try to invest a lot on things that can address that to these younger generations, so that when they go to our platform, they have this amazing experience. Examples. We have our fan zone, where in a lot of events, people can actually watch the match, and while watching the match, they are engaging on this chat with other people that are watching the same match. So they can comment, so they can send their emotions, so they will not going to be at home alone, but they are watching the same match together with thousands of people. Second example. We're basically launched interviews with Q&A sessions with big football stars. So we did it with Iniesta, we did it with Lautaro, we did it with Enzo Fernandes. Well, I'm from Portugal, so we're going to do also with a lot of Portuguese stars. So with João Félix, with Ruben Dias, with Cancelo. And again, this is for the people that are engaged in our DAZN platform to actually have a different experience than just the linear viewership. We launched a new global program for content creators, and we want to establish the new era of sports content creators that will be putting content on the DAZN platform and as well as on other platforms as well. So again, what we know is that, yes, we need to continue to do very well what is the legacy way of engaging with sports, and then we need to try it out. We need to continue to invest on new things, on new features, on new ways to bring this excitement that is bringing the social community aspects of watching sports in the same way that 20 years ago we did it probably on the streets or on a cafe or somewhere else. And now that feeling remains, but it's more digital and it's more on the platforms that we can control and that we can put available for our.
Andrea, YouTube really is the OG home of creators, and DAZN have just launched their creator program, as João said. But creators for a long time on YouTube have been actually an entry point into sport and into sports fandom for many. How big is that shift now? How important have creators become in that sports media ecosystem driven ostensibly by YouTube?
It is actually a very crucial moment for this phase. And we're seeing across the world a lot of creators starting to buy rights themselves and streaming it on YouTube, building massive communities, and actually being able to reach an incredible amount of younger audiences. And what is we find very interesting is to see how most of the time additional reach that they build over an event that maybe is also broadcasted on a TV or on an OTT platforms and so on, it's completely incremental. This is actually good for the ecosystem because it's just opening up the sports to a completely new audience, which have probably lost interest because they didn't have that community element and so on. Now, what we're seeing is, and what we think is going to be more and more the future is a complete personalization of the experience. And we're trying to build products around this concept. One of the experiments that we've been doing is a product features called Watch With, where any content provider can stream the live stream on YouTube and complement the streaming with the voice of a creator that has been, they have the opportunity to open it up to every creator or to choose specific creators.
Yeah.
But the interesting part is that the creator is going to bring to that sport content a community that belong to him or her. And it's a completely new type of experience. I mean, it's really, I want to watch the game with this person and have fun because I like the way it speaks. I like the references that it does are connecting with me because we have something in common and so on. So we really see tension going on. I think that there are specific markets where this is more visible than others. We're seeing ZTV in Brazil with a huge success. Now, it's live mode also announced the World Cup for before live games here in Portugal, and there is going to be other example around the world. In Italy, Cronache di Spogliatoio is another one, a group of creators that have started to buy rights of Copa del Rey and FIFA. So it's something that we're seeing everywhere. We are very keen to work with all of these partners and also building connection and collaboration between traditional media and creators to make sure that everyone can benefit. This can be a positive thing for the sport ecosystem.
Certainly, I think collaboration will be a theme of this conference. Anna, you've got a D2C service. Is that your response to those fans that come through social rather than the traditional bundle?
Yes, partially yes. Not because we don't believe in bundles, which is our main proposition, but because we believe that these fans are not in a position to make this decision of which connectivity to choose for my house. So it's an easy way to acquire customers with less frictions, without any commitment. Of course, acquiring is easy. The problem is the retention. You need to earn the next session, the next weekend with them. And with time, these customers hopefully will become a tier 1 customers with all more services, connectivity, mobile lines. And coming back to your point, I think that it's going to work, at least in Spain, because in our case, we have the main contribution of the signal, and then we get the audio from the Liga, from the DAZN, and then customers can choose their preferred radio commentator.
Yes.
And it's amazing how many people changes the original audio to hear the match with their favorite radio commentator. So I think that it's a very cool and evolved.
I think for a long time, I've seen it also happening on YouTube where the game would be on the TV on a linear broadcast, but the sound would be down. And again, my kids would have their favorite YouTube creator then just doing an alternative commentary. But now it's been woven into that offering. Ian, we spoke in the prep about this. There's a massive switch off coming, content moving to that internet delivery. Are we building the infrastructure now in the right way, or are we going to hit a wall at some point?
Hopefully we're not going to hit a wall. So I think all telcos and broadcasters, content providers are all aware that there's been a massive shift in the last few years away from traditional linear television over towards streaming. Of course, it's a CDN that's critical to our business. But to your point, certain countries, UK is one of the first, I believe, in Europe anyway, to actually go for a full switch off, which will mean that, of course, all content is going to be streamed. That does create a lot of pressure for the underlying infrastructure. I mean, if you look at rough approximate numbers, maybe in the next 8 to 10 years, the capacity requirements are going to be 20, 30, 40, 50 times more than is currently available today. That's going to require, I don't think you can just go and dig up more roads and lay more pipe. I don't think that's going to solve the problem. I think it's going to be, better codecs, better compression technologies, smarter edge distribution. Technology is going to have to come in and contribute to how that problem is solved. But certainly that's the way it's going. There's going to be, it's not just with video, it's with augmented reality, high bit rates, bigger demands for better performance, multiple viewing, as you've just been talking about, right? You're watching on one screen and multiple screens all at the same time. These are all incredibly demanding on capacity. And so capacity is a challenge. Yeah, for sure.
It's certainly not something we tend to think about very much. We like talking about the UX, and we like talking about the content and the experience. It really opened my eyes in talking to you about just how much drain that is on the infrastructure. And actually, if we don't invest in that, then all of the other stuff just doesn't work. It breaks. Okay, we're nearly at the end, and I feel like we could go on for much longer, but I'm sure Marion wouldn't thank me for it. So as a final, I'll start with you, Ian, and we'll come back down the line. But I always like to just give us a prediction. Think about the next 3 to 5, in the next 30 seconds. Give us, what is it going to look like for you in the next 3 to 5 years in your business, in the business of sport?
More predictability. Of course, everyone's talking about AI, however you look at it, but taking real-time data and then being able to model it and then understand what could happen. One of the big challenges we work with, like Vincenzo, for example, at DAZN, constantly planning how much capacity do I need? How am I going to deliver a qualitative experience? No one knows. Nobody knows how many fans are going to turn up. So I think using data for a lot more active and accurate predictability is going to be key. The other one is using the QoE data, the quality of experience data that everyone is using today, and multiple providers of that to then inform more efficient workflows, more accurate pricing. I think pricing around advertising and subscription is very static. You get a CPM rate, you get a subscriber rate. But I think that could be a lot more dynamic based on actual engagement. So I think there's going to be a lot more intelligence around that. That could maybe even overcome the piracy problem. So I think there's just going to be a lot more application of real-time data, providing actionable insights to drive predictability, more sensitivity around pricing, more accuracy. That's the direction I think is going to go.
For sure. Anna, how about you?
My case, I think that the key is personalization. We need to understand better users, remove friction from the onboarding, the content discovery play out, as I was saying before, remove the complexity for those who want to keep it simple and give more opportunities to ones that want to go in depth.
That would be the panacea, wouldn't it? How about you, Andrea?
I would agree on personalization and authenticity as well. So what we're seeing as a winning point of creators is the authenticity that they bring in the narrative of sports. And I think that's the real change we're seeing. So more authenticity, more personalization, more collaboration between the parties, and YouTube becoming even more important part of the sport ecosystem, bringing together all of these different actors of sports.
It comes down to value, doesn't it? Justifying that value. If it's important, if it services your needs, then it's valuable. How about you, Joao?
Well, I would say even less than 3 years, but the winners will be the ones that will get the trust from the fans for daily usage, for a very regular usage. And how do I believe that we can do that? Well, first, through operational excellence on our core, live sports, it's our core. Second, be able to construct these social and community experiences. And I would say third, through the use of technology, AI, to be able to bring these new features to content discovery, to content creation, to content sharing, to basically be able to combine the sports archive, so the rights that each platform has, together with the technology that can make the good use of that sports archive, and with that create this hyper personalization of the platform that can engage customers more and more.
Thank you very much. So we've managed a whole sports panel, and we've barely spoken about the value of sports media rights. They're still important, yes, but they're kind of table stakes. I think you would agree there's so much more to delivering sports media experiences than ever before. So please join me in saying thank you to our panel.